There's a really good chance that your hiking shoes or your hiking boots don't fit. Hi, I'm Jack. I worked at REI for about 5 years and I've hiked over 1,000 miles on the Appalachian Trail. And in today's video, I want to give you some practices to make sure that your shoes fit and some hacks you can do to make them fit even better, especially if they don't fit. Let's get into it. If you've ever had bruised toenails, bunch of blisters, or you felt like your heel was gonna fall off because it's just a raw, massive meat, then this video is probably for you. So what do I mean by hiking shoes? Well, a hiking shoe is essentially a trail runner or a boot that has a low cut to it. So in this case, this is a trail runner. And a trail runner, well, it's just a running shoe with maybe some different foam, a stiffer last, and it has some more aggressive tread on the bottom. And this is a hiking boot. A hiking boot is more or less, well, what you think about when you think about hiking, right? It is a leather boot and tends to have a higher coverage around the ankle. They also tend to be waterproof. So each shoe is designed for a specific purpose, right? So I live in the Southeast and around this area, it's really hot, it's really humid. You're gonna run into a bunch of rain at the end of the day. So oftentimes folks like me are opting for a trail runner because although it's not waterproof, it dries extremely quickly. And in these Appalachian mountains, you want something that dries quickly because when things get wet, they tend to stay wet. And if you have something like this here, waterproof hiking boot, well, unfortunately, once it gets wet, it will stay wet a lot longer than a breathable shoe that dries out. So to help with our discussion today, I thought it'd be really good if I made you guys a checklist. This is the good fit list, and we are going to get into our first one, toe space. Toe spacing. Toe spacing is really important because you need to ensure that you have, and this is not a hard and fast metric, but about the width of a thumb from your furthest toe in the shoe to the actual ending of the shoe. It should look something like this. This is my hiking shoe, and right there is my big toe. So super simple test. You just kick your foot back to the back of the heel, lift your toe up. Visually, it looks pretty good, but what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna stick my thumb there, and I'm just gonna kind of feel for the edge of the shoe right here and where my toe is. And yep, I'm about thumbs width apart. It's feeling pretty good. Now, I'm sure you saw that video and you're just like, Jack, what do you mean a thumb width apart? Like, very clearly it looks like you have just a little bit more, like a thumb and a half type of width. And yes, I admit I do. The reason why is kind of twofold. First of all, I have pretty wide feet. They're not very big, but you know, but you know, they're relatively wide for their size. I have a high foot volume, meaning like my foot is not only just a little bit wider, it's also a little bit taller. So you may notice, like, a good example is between guys and girls. Women tend to have like feet that occupy lower volumes. So instead of the arch of their foot being relatively high, if you put it to a relative size of a male's, you know, it tends to be a little bit shorter, whereas men tend to have a higher volume foot for me. So I like to give myself a little bit extra room there just to accommodate that volume. It's just what I found is most comfortable for me, but that's kind of the initial guideline that I like to give. Just make sure you have at least a thumb's width of space, and anything past like a thumb and a half to 2 thumbs, it starts to feel a little swimmy, but don't worry, there are ways we can address that later. So the same principle also applies to your boots. In fact, I would even argue that it's even more necessary for boots, and here's why. So if I take my boot right here, you know, admittedly this is a lightweight, really flexible boot. Like I can basically just press on that toe area, the little toe shield, and it's gonna conform. If you're wearing like a more of a proper boot, like I said, these are a lightweight boot with proper leather, or it's like some of those nice synthetic material like in Solomon's or Low Alpine, you'll notice that it's pretty stiff, and that's intentional because it's designed to prevent rocks from like crushing your toes, or like you can basically kick rocks. Well, if you don't have that thumb width of space, it's kind of hard to do. If you don't have that thumb width of space, what ends up happening is, and it seems super subtle, your toes will start to bump against the front of the shoe, and you'll start to bruise your toenails, and you will eventually get black toenails, and then those toenails will fall off. Ask me how I know. You need to make sure you have enough space in front of your shoe to prevent bruising your toenails. If you bruise your toenails, what happens is eventually they're going to fall off, and then you need to regrow your toenail. Not sure about you, but that's not on my bucket list. And honestly, it's especially devastating during like a long backpacking trip. If your toenail falls off, you gotta tape that sucker. You gotta take measures to make sure it doesn't get infected. It's not a fun thing to deal with. So the first rule of foot sizing on the good fit list is make sure you have enough space for your toes. All right, let's say you went ahead, you put your thumb down, you're just like, I think I have enough space, but could be a little short, could be a little long, I'm not sure. Well, in order to show you how to actually test this, we're gonna need to go on a little road trip. So you're gonna have to come with me. Welcome to my back porch, and these are car ramps. Jack, why do you have car ramps? Well, to do work on my car. But for today, we're going to use them to make sure we have enough space in the front of our shoes. So easiest thing you can do, make sure you have good toe space, find you a downward slope, car ramp. Stairs also work really well too. And then just walk downhill. If you feel your toes touch the front of the shoe, bad news, your shoes are probably a little too small. Don't worry, we can do some things to address that if you can't get some new shoes right now or change the sizing. But yeah, you probably need to get new shoes or at least a different size. So as long as they don't touch the front, you're good to go. And with that, we can go ahead and check off toe spacing. And after a quick water break, this brings us to number 2 on our list, which is heel space. So when it comes to heel spacing, you want to make sure that when you're wearing your shoe or your boot of choice, that when you slide your foot to the front of the shoe to the best of your ability, when you stick your finger in the back of the shoe between your heel and the back of the shoe, there should be about a finger's width of space, and it should be snug but comfortable. Reason why this is important, no matter what you do, your foot is going to slide in the shoe a little bit. It's going to slide a little bit forward, it's going to slide a little bit backward. You want a tiny bit of slide, not much, but it just helps your foot breathe in a way. Like if you tie your shoes too tight and you feel like your foot going numb, that's your blood vessels kind of constricting because the blood can't move through your shoes. So just a tiny little bit of wiggle room, that's a pretty good thing to do. So another thing, you want to make sure that the spacing of the heel around the sides is relatively snug. I like to think that you want to feel your heel is relatively locked into the shoe, but your toes are able to move around freely, and that's a really good sign. To really test this, you want to make sure that when you're walking that your heel is following your foot as you're taking a step. If for whatever reason you're walking and your heel starts sliding up like that and is detached from the bottom of the shoe, that means that it's a bit too loose and you could get blisters. If there's enough space in the heel and it's not sliding around too much, go ahead and cross off heel space. Also, for this video, I've been using the Ultra Timp 5. It's what I used on the Appalachian Trail. I'll put some footage up here. I bought like 3 or 4 pairs of them, but you can actually find it on Amazon right now on sale. I think it's like 25% off at time of recording. So I'll leave a link in the description below if you're interested in it. And then this boot that I've been using is the Ultra Lone Peak 4 Mid. It's waterproof, it's great, really like it. I'll probably buy the new version when it goes on sale. So I love both of these shoes, definitely think they're worth the investment. With those 2 things checked off, we can move to our 3rd thing on the list. The 3rd thing on the list, lacing. Lacing is the hack that I mentioned earlier to try and solve some of these problems. If your heel is sliding around too much, or if you feel like you don't have enough space in the middle of the foot, even to some degree in the toes as well. So let's get into some lacing hacks real quick. So really there's 2 ways we can adjust our laces to adjust the fit of the shoe. The first way is we can redo the laces, so instead of going crisscross, they go vertical, and that opens up space in the shoe. So if you have the shoe and it feels a little tight in one area, we can do that. And then the other way, and this is something that a lot of runners use, is called the runner's lock. It's by using those little holes at the end of the shoe. So that's good for tightening up things around the heel, and I'm gonna show you how to do both of those. There's also a third one, and I'll have to get another shoe for this, but you don't actually need to use all these eyelets in the shoe. You can skip them, so you can actually reduce tightness in one section of the shoe. I do this a lot for like my Vans. Just so you can see what I mean by skipping an eyelet, you don't actually need to use them all. I move this one up so that it's a little looser right here. It makes the toes feel a lot better. So, all right, to do the first technique, all you have to do is get your shoe, untie it. Feel free to loosen it up a little bit, and remember, this is the one to make it all feel a little looser. What you're gonna do, just undo the laces, and where there was once a little crisscross, we'll just make it go straight up and down. So I'm just going to thread it straight up, like so. And now in that section, because it's not crisscrossing anymore, it's going to feel a lot looser and definitely more comfortable in that area. The next technique is called the runner's lace, and this actually makes use of the extra eyelet at the end right there. So it's super simple. All you have to do is on the same side, you're going to take your shoelace, thread it through, and you're going to leave like just enough space right there, almost like an extra bunny ear. And you're going to do that on both sides. And this is to really help lock up your shoe around your heel so it fits better. Now, and here's the tricky part. You take the lace and you feed it through the little loop you just created, taking care to make sure that you don't tighten it on the other side enough. So now you're actually able to leverage the design of the shoe, and most running shoes, if not all, have this extra eyelet to make it feel more secure and snug around your heel. Typically what I like to do is when I put it on my foot, I like to kind of shimmy, and it tightens up all the laces in the shoe nicely. So again, this is to make it feel more secure on your foot. Let's go ahead and cross off lacing. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you found that information helpful. If you're interested in more outdoor stuff, gear guides, home office, and automotive, subscribe. If you found any of this useful today, leave a comment down below. I'd love to hear from you. What other stuff are you interested in? Let me know.